Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Permanent Values, Part 13. Freedom from Fear and Huzn, and which is normally translated as grief, and it is a permanent value. These are the references, and this is our contact in case there is any query, question, comment regarding this presentation or any of our previous work. First slide is some reflections on the permanent values. What I've done over here is that because this permanent value is the 40th permanent value which we have covered in this session, and I thought to put some reflections from our experience so far. With this session, we will have covered aspects of 40 permanent values in some detail and also looked at their impact on the human psyche. Since these values do not change and remain immutable, when a system is established based on these values, all the benefits associated with these will be made available to all members living within the confines of that system called Deen. The point to note over here is that these values are immutable. So all those personalities, all those selves which emerge within these permanent values will also have a permanent outlook of them. And that is important for establishing the system of Deen, that these outlooks, these visions, these selves do not waver on the path of Allah. The human systems created by the human intellect are based on relative values which keep changing. So all these human beings also keep changing within the man-made system in direct proportion to the will of those who control these systems. And we can observe that because one person says one thing one day and another they say another thing. And even collectively, their laws keep changing, their commitments keep changing, their agreements keep changing. And this is a problem in these man-made systems, that there is no certainty in it, and that creates fear. Thus, the human self, which is shaped under these values, if it is unaware, simply cannot have those characteristics which are manifested within the domain of the permanent values. The human self, after acquiring new life, and we have talked about it, that using the Quran, we create a new self within us. Our outlook changes, our view of things changes, we see the events differently, which emerges under the domain of the permanent values, acquires that permanence of character, the holders of which are termed as Mu'mineen, Muttaqeen, Salihin, Mohsineen. Once the human self acquires this permanence, then it becomes ready to be handed over to the next phase of its development, i.e. the life of the hereafter. Coming to grips with comprehension of these values helps to identify many latent potentials within ourselves, which lead to accepting Iman and doing solid deeds with a view to begin displaying these newly acquired character traits individually as well as collectively in the world. And we must have seen that even merely acquainting ourselves with these values has broadened our vision. Some of the things which were not clear to us previously, now those are far more clear than what these used to be. Now, next slide is carrying out self-analysis. As students of the Quran, we need to come to terms with our own comprehension of the guidance of Allah and the changes which have taken place within our psyche. For example, about the issues of life before coming to the Quran, according to what values we use to resolve those problems. So we can compare our present approach to life and its problems with those which we used to do before coming to the Quran. What did we know about the permanent values within the religious belief system? And we can analyze all those beliefs which exist within various religions in the light of what we have learned so far. We should also look at the way we become convinced about the Quranic system of Deen and how long it took us to reach a particular milestone on this path called Sirat-e-Mustaqim. This means we should also give some time to others to think over it and change. We should not expect immediate results by giving message to someone and if they walk away. How we would have appreciated someone explaining Iman and its importance in living this life. What benefits will one accrue by following this path of life? I put down this comment from my own experience because sometimes I said, I wish somebody had given me this message the way we explain it to others. And that is our motivation as well. We are trying to present these talks in a way so that these appeal to the logical, rational side of human beings. How did we come to this conclusion that the man-made systems can never guide humanity towards that success which is noted and highlighted in the Quran? Our effort on this platform, that is under the auspices of Tolu Islam, is to educate, train, and prepare ourselves to that high eminence where we can meet the minimum threshold level of the criteria put forward by the Quran for Mu'mineen. And that is important because these questions arise in our mind that, okay, we are getting educated, we are getting trained, we are also developing ourselves through our own efforts. What is next? And we have gone through it previously as well, and we will go through it again, maybe in the next presentation, where I intend putting down what are the steps in terms of moving towards the system of Deen. We have touched upon it previously as well, but it is good to remind ourselves. What will we achieve by doing this? Becoming a Mu'min as defined by the Quran will help us to understand the reality behind human creation and will lead to strengthening our Iman in the laws applicable to the development of the human self. It will pave the way to understanding the process of getting power in the land as per verse 55 of Surah Nur. Now next is, I've drawn a schematic, two paths of life, different concepts of companionship. Now this is the path of majority in the world. What is the aim of life under man-made systems? To somehow get through physical life successfully. How is success defined under these systems? And we know that if we ask someone how he or she defines success, we will see that self-development hereafter, concept of Allah will not come into it. This will be revolving around the physical side of life and its benefits. Mechanistic or animalistic concept of living, biological birth and being brought up within biological relationships, affinities. There is no choice in biological relationships. In this kind of living, there are no permanent values, hence the development of the human self as laid down in the Quran is not possible. We have gone through this aspect previously as well because the relationships which we have, if we are not exposed to the Quran, are always biological, physical, and based on living life in this world and its successes. So that means the concept of new life given by the Quran does not come into it. Hence, we leave this world without being exposed to the permanent values. Death ends all that is biological. There are only two modes of living, Mu'min or Kafir. And this is very interesting. Over here, if we look at this verse, Quran says there are only two types of individuals, human beings, at cognitive level, at self's level in the world, and those it defines as Mu'min or Kafir. And within, of course, Kafir, there are a number of categories. It's not a derogatory term, it is the state of development of human self and its outlook. The Quran provides another choice which does not exist under the man-made systems. And this is something which we should carry away from this presentation as well as our presentation on the purpose of human creation with the Quranic perspective. Because in the man-made system, we only live under one choice. That is, we have to obey man-made systems. Whereas Quran presents another system, that is system of Deen. And that is what makes us human when we have another choice. Living life without a choice is living at animalistic level, and that is something which we should explain to others. The path of Deen exists as an option for the human intellect to make itself free from fear and Huzn. So this is a very important statement which I put down over here in the light of the Quran, is that if we are living under the man-made system, simply we cannot get rid of fear and Huzn. It means the world created by the unbridled human intellect is an environment of fear and Huzn. After creating new life, Mu'mineen come together and foster a new companionship among themselves. This companionship gradually gains strength as their iman is strengthened through salih deeds. And that is another very important point. If we do not have access to the Quranic self, then that means we are living a life at biological level, at physical level, at materialistic level. Whereas by coming to the Quran, we have created a new life, and there is now new bonding, new relationship which has developed. And this relationship, if well established in this life, will never ever break after death. When their hearts become united and an eternal affection is created among them, then the signs for power in the land begin to appear as per the law of Allah. So the first sign of power is of their coming together, because they had certain power in the previous relationship of which was biological, which was physical. But now at cognitive level, they are aware of their previous life, and now a new life has started appearing within this community of Mu'mineen. And this is not something to create any problems in the world. This is for the good of whole of mankind, because they have come together to create new life in the world and give life to the dead humanity. All biological affinities end with death, while this bond gained through the Quran continues beyond physical death. This is in line with the higher purpose of the creation of man on planet Earth. And this is another very interesting point which needs a profound reflection. I'm quite happy to go over it during our question and answer session, that death is parting between the two paths of life. So death over here, if we look at it under inverted commas, is a blessing of Allah, that once people have acquired new life and become mu'mineen, and then at some stage they go over to the next life, and this is the end of life for those who are living at biological level. Selves developed under the permanent values then proceed forward. And Quran says, Inna Allaha yudkhilul lazina amanu wa amilu salihati jannatin tajri min tahtiha al-anharu wallazina kafaru yatamatta'una wa yaquluna kama taqulul an'amu wan naru maswal lahum. And its translation is, verily Allah will admit those who accept Iman and do salih deeds to Jannat beneath which streams flow. And this is as far as this life is concerned. And of course, for the next life, again, their life will continue forward at a developed self level. While those who do kufr will enjoy and eat as cattle eat, and the fire will be their abode. And we can see that fire, that problems, chaos, wars, conflicts created in today's world and the imbalances in the world. So Quran lumps them all together who do not think that their life can go beyond the physical death level. So it calls them kufr, which means essentially denying that there is another life to it, and they have a self which can develop and can go on to the next life. And such selves which are dependent on kufr are bound to create fear and huzn in the world. Now, next slide is recap metaphorical account of Adam. Now, what I've done is I've gone over these verses from 30 to 38 of Surah Al-Baqarah, because there is quite a lot covered in that by the Quran, and puts the whole perspective before us, the purpose of human creation and what human beings do at a basic level when they are not guided, and what should happen once they become guided. The comment by the Malaika initially was Qala rabbuka lil malaikati inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa qalu atajalu fiha man yufsidu fiha wa yasfiku dima. Behold, your Rabb said to the Malaika, I will create a Khalifa on earth. And Khalifa over here means a successor of previous creation. So before human beings arrived here, there were another creation which disappeared. They said, that is Malaika, the universal forces. They said, will you place therein one who will create fasad and shed blood? And fasad means who will create chaos, conflicts, and imbalances in the world. And of course, shed blood. We know what is going on in the world of 2025. The next verse is, Allah did not rebut the Malaika and instead stated, so over here Allah did not tell these forces of nature that Adam will not do this. but instead he went on to say, وَأَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا ثُمَّ أَرَدَهُمْ عَلَى الْمَلَائِكَةِ فَقَالَ أَنْبِئُونِي بِأَسْمَاءِ هَؤُلَاءِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. And he taught Adam the names of all things, that is, all things which he's going to come across during his finite life on this planet. He is able to characterize them through their names and properties. Then he placed them before the Malaika, that is the forces of nature, and said, tell me the names of these if you are right. But Malaika did not have any choice and intent and did not possess this ability to characterize things. The Malaika responded by saying, Qalu subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. They said, glory to you, of knowledge we have none, save what you have taught us. In truth, it is you who is Alim and Hakim. And Alim, we know, omniscient, and Hakim means one who is wise, all wise, when it is related to Allah. So Malaika replied that we only have that knowledge which you have placed within us, but we cannot go beyond that. Allah highlighted the characteristics and latent potentials of Adam at a fundamental level and said, Qala ya Adamu ambihum bi asma'ihim falamba ambahum bi asma'ihim qala alam aqul lakum inni alamu ghaibas samawati wal ardi wa alamu ma tubduna wa ma kuntum taktumun. He said, O Adam, tell them their names. So Allah asked Adam to spell out the characteristics and properties of these things which were put before Malaika. When he had told them, so Adam rattled it out because he had the abilities, potentials to name things. Allah said, did I not tell you that I know the secret of the highs and lows of the universe, and I know what you manifest and what you have within you? So over here, Allah has clarified to Malaika as well as to Adam and to us that Allah knows all the secrets of highs and lows of the universe, and he's happy to share it with us. And we have gone through this thing under knowledge. So what Allah said over here is that I know what potentials you have and what you are going to manifest with the passage of time and what you are manifesting now. So Quran is telling us that we have tremendous latent potentials which need to be brought out, and these simply cannot be brought out under the domain of man-made systems. Note that the Quran does not include any response to the comment by the Malaika that Adam will do fasad and shed blood. So that means human unbridled intellect will create problems in the world. Going to the next slide, continuing with the story of the creation of Adam, our attention is drawn towards the human unbridled intellect. وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ أَبَى وَاسْتَكْبَرَ وَكَانَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ. And behold, we said to Malaika, that is forces of the nature, which were visible as well as invisible. We have gone through this aspect previously as well, that Malaika includes all the forces of nature, for example, gravity, wind, sunlight, and all the psychological aspects within us. And if we look at this, like those nuclear forces and mechanical and electrical and whatever man has discovered so far and is going to discover more will all fall under Malaika. Bow down to Adam. So all Malaika which are visible and invisible in the universe have been placed under the subjugation control of man. And they bowed down. Not so Iblis, and Iblis is referred over here to human inner rebellious emotions. That is, where human beings, they retaliate, they become impulsive. They say, I don't accept it. He refused and was haughty. He was of those who do kufr. So we should keep in mind that what Quran said in the previous schematic, where Quran has said that those who do not reflect and think that they are just animals, a higher form of animals living in this life, and they are kafir. The planet Earth is placed at the disposal of man to create a world of his own choice. So the next verse says, وَقُلْنَا يَا آدَمُ اسْكُنْ أَنْتَ وَزَوْجُكَ الْجَنَّةَ وَكُلَا مِنْهَا رَغَدًا حَيْثُ شِئْتُمَا وَلَا تَقْرَبَا هَٰذِهِ الشَّجَرَةَ فَتَكُونَا مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. We said, "O Adam, dwell you and your wife in Jannat." That was the initial stage of human beings on earth, where they had all means of sustenance available to them, and eat of the bountiful things therein as you wish. Of course, everything was placed in their control. They could go anywhere, they could travel anywhere, they could produce anything. But approach not this tree, metaphor for dividing into parties, or you will run into harm and injustice. So shajar over here, normally they translate it as tree, but it is to cause divisions, because any tree starts from one common root and then divides itself. So what Quran has said over here is that if you stay united on this earth, then this will become paradise for you. But if you do not, then this will cause problems and will cause conflicts. And that is the state in which we are living today in today's world. However, man's own cognitive dissonance led to making a wrong choice, which caused divisions among them. فَزَلَّهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ عَنْهَا فَأَخْرَجَهُمَا مِمَّا كَانَ فِيهِ وَقُلْنَا اهْبِطُوا بَعْضُكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ عُدُوٌّ وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرٌّ وَمَتَاعٌ إِلَىٰ حِينٍ. Then did Shaitan. Now we can see that over here from Iblis to Quran has used Shaitan, and Shaitan is one who hinders, who stops one from going towards the path of Haqq, and also are all emotions within us which are fiery in nature, where we do not use the rational side of our mind. Make them slip from there and get them out of the state of theirs. We said, get you down all with a wedge of enmity between yourselves. Very important over here, what Quran is saying is that since they divided themselves, as a result, the consequences were that they fell in conflict with each other. They created problems for each other, and that life of Jannat, in which they could go anywhere and eat anything, became a sort of Jahim, or a sort of hell for them. On earth will be your dwelling place and your means of livelihood in a finite time. So Quran over here in these verses is pointing to us process through which human beings live their life and then create problems for each other. And what Quran is saying is that there is a solution for it. Continuing with the account of Adam. Adam, guided on the aspect of making an error of judgment and resorting to tawbah, that is to come back and reset his direction. فَطَلَّقَ آدَمُ مِنْ رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٍ فَتَابَ عَلَيْهِ إِنَّهُ هُوَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ. Then learned Adam from his Rabb words via Wahi, and his Rabb turned towards him, for he is oft returning ar-Rahim. So despite Adam falling into conflict and creating fire for himself on the planet in the social living, Allah guided him and said that is fine if you have created these problems, but there is a way to overcome these problems. And the first thing is that you should go back to your position ante, the previous position where you were before falling into this problem, and then redirect yourself on a different path. Mankind apprised about the guidance of Wahi as an external choice and informed, قُلْ نَهْبِطُوا مِنْهَا جَمِيعًا فَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُم مِّنِّي هُدًى فَمَن تَبِعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. And very interesting over here, Quran says, we said, get you down from here. That means that the position in which you were, which was a happy position, then you created problems for yourself, divided yourself into parties, created all these democratic so-called institutions, and then started creating countries and started fighting with each other, whereas at a basic level, you are the same human beings. And then Quran says, if as is sure there comes to you guidance from me, whosoever follows my guidance, on them shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. And this is a beautiful verse of the Quran over here, in which Allah is telling us that, okay, you land yourself into a difficult situation under the man-made system, but there is a way to get out of it. And there is a choice we have given to you through this book of Allah. And if you follow it and follow its footsteps, its procedure, then all the fear and grief which is created by man-made systems, that will disappear at some point in time. Few comments on these verses, that is 30 to 38. The Quran has pointed to 4 problems which the unbridled human intellect creates in the world, and which is fasad, that is all imbalances in the world, bloodshed, all wars and conflicts, fear, and huzn. Adam possesses the ability to characterize all things of the universe and bring these under his use. So Adam has all the potentials to be able to solve these problems which are created by his own dissonances. His initial life on the planet was without any divisions and parties, and he was free to use its means of sustenance anywhere. And just see that if that position is regained under the system of Deen, how beautiful this planet will become. There are no borders, one could travel anywhere, live anywhere, earn a living anywhere. And everywhere human beings are treated equally with respect and dignity. However, he resorted to causing divisions and made parties, and that is called shajar. And as a result, turned his initial life of Jannat into one which was full of conflicts and which is the word of 2025. This leads to the creation of fear and huzn. He is provided with another choice through the Quran, that is Wahi of Allah, to help turn his earthly life into Jannat by following its guidance. This will become free from fear and huzn. The Quran has characterized the salient aspects of living a life of Jannat. Now we will look at root Khauf or fear, which is normally translated as fear and is quoted in this last verse. This is the root. The fundamental meaning of this root is worry and anxiety. It also means killing and war. It also means to apprehend any impending danger or harm from the signs and evidence, that by looking at something, it creates fear. For example, the war going on between Ukraine and Russia, or war going on in Gaza, is also creating fear and huzn. Worrying about some future event, i.e. before the occurrence of some incident. In relation to fear of Allah, it means to obey the laws of Allah completely, as going against these will create fasad, that is conflicts, imbalance, chaos. We should keep in mind that Allah wants us to live this life without any fear. So He will not say that you fear Allah. So some of these terms which are used in the Quran, for example, taqwa, that you fear Allah, is not a correct interpretation. It is about following the laws of Allah. If we have a knowledge of laws of Allah and we follow them and we develop ourselves, all kinds of fears will disappear. Hence, fear of Allah will mean to be conscious of this fact that by abandoning the laws of Allah, how much loss will be caused, and hence to obey these laws. Because once we obey the laws, even within man-made system, once we obey these laws, we have less fear of the man-made system. Avoiding the wrong path of life by becoming alive and fearful of the destructive outcomes of such a path. Thus, fear of Allah is not analogous to the fear of a tyrannical ruler. This fear is similar to being fearful of putting a finger into fire with the fear of burning it. The essential outcome of obedience to the guidance of Allah is the disappearance of fear. Hence, if fear keeps overwhelming some nation, then it should be assumed that it is not obeying the guidance of Allah. Next word is huzn, and we will look into it now. This is the root over here. This is the comprehensive word which is used for each one of those sadnesses, worries, and stresses with which man becomes inflicted for some reason. This especially includes economic hardship and the related anxiety. It includes anxiety about providing food in the morning and the evening. According to Raghib, wherever the Quran has mentioned La tahzan or La tahzanu, this does not mean that you do not worry about it, as man has no control on anxiousness. And that is a very good statement, because if the outer conditions of human beings are not changed, how can human beings become free from anxiety and stress of these wrong conditions around them? This means that you do not allow such conditions to arise to which huzn is created. And this is the responsibility of Jamaat-e-Momineen. And that is why Quran is educating and training us. Also, the hard, stony land is called al-huzn, probably because grain crops cannot grow in it. And there is a psychological side of it as well, in this meaning that if huzn exists in our mind, then nothing else will grow over there. Because if a man is under stress and anxiety of, for example, trying to live a life at a basic level, we cannot expect him to pay attention to higher values of life. And this is a very important point in return for Huzn. So human mind should be free from all kinds of Huzn, because that is what respect and dignity demands. And as a result, that mind will then rise to a very high loftiness and eminence in the world and will be very creative. Ibn Faris has noted that in this root there are aspects of severity, harshness, and roughness. In Khauf, the anxiety is about any expected danger relating to the future, while in Huzn, the grief is about that event which has passed. So combine these together, these encompass the whole of human psychological aspect, and we should be very, very aware of it as students of the Quran. The state before some loss is Khauf, while grief or Huzn commences after the occurrence of that Khauf creating event. Now, next important word in this category is the root of Iman. The root of Iman is as is known. We have gone over it previously as well, but over here I have gone into slightly more detail. Aman means fearlessness, contentment, or the state of being protected from dangers. Amana means to make someone worry-free and contented, giving peace to another, taking the responsibility to protect him upon yourself. So all that Khauf and Huzn can be only eliminated if we are in a state of Aman. Among Arabs, the she-camel, which was trustworthy because of her strength and nature, and about whom there was the assurance that she will not become weak from a sustained journey and will not stumble and fall on the way, was called Naqatun Amunun. Hence, Mu'minun will mean the one who is in a state of peace and contentment himself, and who also gives assurance of peace to others, and by trusting whom man can become free of worry and contented. One attribute of Allah himself is that of Al-Mu'min, which means the one responsible for the peace of the universe. So from this we can take it that we have to display this attribute within ourselves. When Amana is followed by Lam, it means to accept some matter. And when it is followed by Ba, then it means to accept Iman as stated in this verse. Kullun amana billahi. All have Iman in Allah. This is that Iman which is the foundation on which the whole structure of Deen is established, and its wrong meaning becomes the cause for countless complications. Some further reflections on this word: to make someone free from worry and make him contented, to provide peace to others, to take the responsibility for his protection on one's own self. And this is a huge responsibility as a moment. To trust and rely on someone, to acknowledge someone to be trustworthy and a guardian. And we can imagine from here that what kind of a system of deen these mu'mineen will create once they are given power in the land. Mu'min is a derivative of this root, which means the one who gives a guarantee of peace, by trusting whom one can become secure and free from any concern. Guarantor of world peace. Another derivative from this is Amin, which is fearless, contented, who is taken as trustworthy, on whom trust can be placed. Iman is also its derivative, and it encompasses all these meanings. To accept, to have conviction, to recognize, i.e. not reject. To verify, accepting its being the truth, i.e. not to falsify it. Trust and confidence, to accept some matter, to obey, to bow down. There are 5 basic realities through which one becomes a mu'min. For example, it is noted in verse 177 of Surah Al-Baqarah, and the 5 realities are Allah, hereafter, Malaika, books, and Anbiya. Next slide is freedom from Khauf and Huzn. Why do we need it? Fear is that deadly poison due to which human eminence becomes destroyed. In the word, a human being bows down in front of another human being either to get some benefit, and this is called expectation, or to avoid some danger. Expectation of a man can still be easily overcome, but overcoming fear is comparatively difficult. This is because the sense of self-preservation is the fundamental requirement of life. And when man thinks that there is danger to his protection, then this instinctive need arises with great severity and forces him to adopt every means that is legitimate and illegitimate. So the question of earning bread and butter becomes fundamental with human beings, and for that they are willing to subjugate themselves to any kind of slavery. The height of success in life is that such circumstances do not become created to which fear and huzn become imposed on man. The Quranic society produces such an environment in which the members of the society remain in peace from fear and huzn. Can there be a paradise better than this in which no one has any fear and heartache? And this is placed within our reach by the Quran, because Quran says that this Jamaat al-Mu'minin is not alone. Allah is with them wherever they are, which means the Quran is available to them, and psychologically the presence of Allah is going to provide them strength to remain on this path. When the Quranic society is not established, then the Quranic teaching produces such a revolution within man that he does not have any fear from anyone. This takes place when he starts to give such importance to the higher values of life that he remains ready to sacrifice every benefit of physical life willingly all the time for their protection. And when this is the condition of man, then he cannot suffer from any kind of fear and huzn. He only has one fear, i.e., the loss which can be caused by disobeying the laws of Allah. Next slide is the importance of the human psyche, the Quranic perspective. The Quran points to two paths of life and their consequences. When the path of the Quran is not followed knowingly or unwittingly, it doesn't make any difference. Fire will burn whether we know it will burn or not. Whoever puts his finger in fire, it will burn. It signposts its effects on individuals as well as on nations. And Quran says, Inna Allaha la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Verily, never will Allah change the condition of a nation until they change what is in themselves. So all war, all conflicts are within human psyche. So if human beings understand their own psyche, then they can change the outer world. Collective fear is created by the Taghuti system. وَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا قَرْيَةً كَانَتْ آمِنَةً مُطْمَئِنَّةً يَأْتِيهَا رزقها رغدا من كل مكان فكفرت بأنعم الله فأذاقها الله لباس الجوع والخوف بما كانوا يصنعون. Allah sets forth a parable, a town enjoying security and quiet, abundantly supplied with sustenance from every place, yet was displaying kufr for the favors of Allah. So Allah made it taste of hunger and fear on account of what it wrought. So we can see that condition around us, that people, if we take it down to individuals, people who are well off and they end up creating problems for others. And this is because they do not have clear aim of life. They do not have higher aim of life. They think that the life will end with death, and that is why they wish to accumulate more. And such people create yatim and miskeen in the world. And Quran says as a result of that, they end up creating hunger, that is economic problems, as well as fear in the society in which they live. And now the whole world is facing that. Recognizing the state of the human psyche, the Quran puts forward the solution for our consideration. And it says, Ya ayyuhan nasu qad ja'atkum maw'izatum min rabbikum wa shifa'un lima fis sudur wa hudan wa rahmatul lil mu'minin. O mankind, there has come to you an admonishment from your Rabb and a healing for your psyche. And that's the beautiful part of this verse, وَشِفَاءٌ لِمَا فِي الصُّدُورِ. Sudur over here normally translated as hearts, whereas it means every aspect of human psyche. And for those who accept Iman, a guidance and rahmat. Next slide is some samples of fear and huzn in the world of 2025. Underlying fear of impending death at some point in the future. Whether somebody admits it or not, there is always underlying death which is lurking in our subconsciousness. We all know at some point we are going to die. Doubt and uncertainty is part of daily human life under man-made systems. Fear about health and diseases, and some of these diseases are created deliberately like COVID-19 and other pandemics. Economic uncertainty, for example, losing job, jobless, decline in business, fluctuations in markets, devaluation, inflation, and we can add to this list. Fear generated by the media, for example, the media mostly reports sensational news and news related to adverse events. It is part of manufacturing concept because people, the global elite or the elite in any nation or a country, they don't want general public to get any sigh of relief, to have any peace. They should be always remain fearful because it is easier to control those who live under fear. Unhappiness and stress created by wars, conflicts, riots, racism, discrimination, prejudices, propaganda, and we can add more to it. Religious beliefs instill a fear of God. And these are all man-made concepts. And consequently, a lot of thought and time is spent on ritualized practices. The human intellect is contaminated, leading to not manifesting latent potentials. And we can see that plenty of that under sectarian Islam. Fear about the future of the life of any progeny. Most people live life with the assumption that it ends with physical death. There is an absence of recognition of the existence of the human self, the law of requital, the life of the hereafter. The absence of the higher purpose of life will lead to the creation of fear. Because human beings want certainty, and when there is no certainty and it is replaced with uncertainty, fear, doubt, suspicions, then it is bound to create problems for itself within its own psyche. Now the next slide is the system of deen replaces fear created by Taghuti systems. And over here, there is a wonderful verse 24:55. وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لَا يَسْتَخْلِفَنَّهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ كَمَا اسْتَخْلَفَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ وَلَا يُمَكِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ دِينُهُمُ الَّذِي ارْتَضَىٰ لَهُمْ وَلَا يُبَدِّلَنَّهُم مِّن بَعْدِ خَوْفِهِمْ أَمْنًا يَعْبُدُونَنِي لَا يُشْرِكُونَ بِي شَيْئًا وَمَنْ كَفَرَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. As for the question that what will be achieved by obedience to these laws, for this we have promised to those people who maintain conviction in the truth of these laws, that is Iman, and carry out potential promoting tasks according to our defined program, that is Saleh deeds, that we will bestow power in the earth to them. And their government will turn that part of the earth into paradise. This is our eternal law, according to which we had bestowed this kind of power to former nations. So Quran always gives examples of former nations that they all benefited from the message of Allah. According to this law, we will bestow government on them as a consequence of their iman and deeds, and will strengthen their system of life which we have approved for them. The outcome of this will be that their fear will turn into peace. And that is the crux of the whole thing. That if they establish this system, what will happen is that the fear in which they were living due to man-made systems, that will turn into peace. So that with great contentment, they only obey our laws, and there is no kind of constraint or pressure on them that they should also obey someone else together with this, and this way commit shirk. No power in the world could force them that they should obey the self-made laws of men together with the laws of Allah. Continuing it, but hear it well that this process will remain established until the time that this nation remains in action on our laws. And it is obvious if we keep following Allah's laws, then this state of peace will not disappear. Those people who, after establishing such a system, reject it in practical terms and instead of the commands of Allah begin to implement their own commands, they will give up the path which was taking them to the correct destination and will go towards other paths, and so will become deprived of the bounties of the paradisiacal society. These bounties were the consequence of Iman and Saleh deeds. Where no Iman and action remained, then how could those bounties remain in place? And this is the state of Muslim world in the world of 2025, because they never went back to the Quran after the initial era of Islam. Analyzing this verse in reverse order, if there is imbalance and chaos in the world which is creating fear and huzn, then it will mean there is no as per the Quran, an evidence-based fact. And we can see that in the world of 2025. The first step is to become Mu'min in order to understand the kind of psyche required to establish Amn, i.e. to become that Mu'min which can bring peace in the world. And this is actually a very easy part of learning the Quran and being the students of the Quran to become Mu'min, because this is within our reach, within the man-made system. Next is join with those who also want this peace, Fama Jamaat Mu'mineen. Again, this is a relatively easier part of it. The challenging part comes later, but by then this Jamaat has acquired enough strength within themselves to face all the challenges. Continue working together and these efforts will lead towards the system of Deen. Now over here, some verses, how does the Quran help to alleviate all kinds of fears? Man-made systems will always be prone to creating fear. And Quran says, وَلَا نَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. And Quran recognizes that there will be problems within the man-made system. And if you do not establish the system of Deen and try to establish it, there will be some losses, there will be some confrontations. And you will, by us, be confronted with fear and hunger that is under man-made systems. Some loss in goods or lives are the fruits of your toil. But there are glad tidings for those who patiently persevere. And this is what is, I will call it as an advance warning provided to Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, that once you are on this path, then gradually you will gain that strength and will be able to face it. And in any case, it is in the presence of Allah, and it will become clearer later on. By making our wealth and possessions available for the cause of Allah. Allazina yunfikuna amwalahum fi sabilillahi summa la yutbi'una ma anfaku mannan wala azan lahum ajruhum inda rabbihim wala khawfun alayhim wala hum yahzanun. So here is another method or technique to overcome this fear and huzn. Those who make available their possessions in the path of Allah and follow not up their gifts and generosity with reminders. Because human brains always throws these kind of ideas that why are you helping him? And you should not, you're not getting in return. And we have to counter it by saying, and through a very firm resolve that I'm on this path of Deen, and for this path of Deen, for strengthening my Iman, I have to do it because I'm not happy with the Taghuti system. Or with injury, for them their reward is with their Rabb, on them shall be no fear and huzn. And over here, this reward with their Rabb means that this is the way to proceed towards the system of Rububiyat. As noted earlier, the procedure of Iman plus Saleh deeds leads to acquiring that psyche. And what is that psyche? Inna allazina amanu wa amilu salihate wa aqamus salata wa atuz zakata lahum ajruhum inda rabbihim wa la khawfun alayhim wa lahum yahzanun. Those who accept Iman and do Saleh deeds and establish Salat and execute Zakat will have their reward with their Rabb, on them shall be no fear and huzn. And the next verse I have quoted here is, the unbridled intellects are prone to creating fear, and we see this being displayed in the world of today. Innama zalikumu shaitanu yukhabbifu awliyahu fala takhafuhum wa khafuni in kuntum mu'minin. It is only Shaitan that suggests to you fear of his votaries. So within human beings, uncertainty is created if they do not have firm Iman in their own cause. Be you not afraid of them. And Quran over here says that since you are on the side of Allah, since you have become companion of Allah, so you don't need to be afraid of that. Overcome these negative suggestions of your own mind, your own inner emotions. But fear me if you are mu'mineen, and we have dealt with this, what it means to fear Allah, which means the consequences of going wrong and against his laws. Next are some more verses shining a light on the issue of fear. The fear of not going against the laws of Allah is part of being a mu'min. And this is from the lips of the messenger himself. Qul inni akhafu in asaitu rabbi azaba yawmin azim. The messenger himself says, say, I would if I disobeyed my Rabb. Again, see over here, Rabb means that if the system of Rububiyyat is not established and I do not make an effort for that, then of course we will land up in a supreme hell, hell with punishment everywhere. Indeed, have fear of the penalty of a mighty day. The whole purpose of sending the messengers with the book of Allah was وَمَا نُرْسِلُ الْمُرْسِلِينَ إِلَّا مُبَشِّرِينَ وَمُنْذِرِينَ فَمَنْ آمَنَ وَأَصْلَحَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. We sent the messengers only to give glad tidings and to war, so that those who have accepted Iman and reformed, upon them shall be no fear nor shall they grieve. And now we know that there are no more messengers coming in the world. It is up to Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen to carry out these tasks. And of course, they are not alone. Allah's laws are the same as these were when the messengers were around, and these are for other human beings as well, whoever stand up for the support of Haqq in the world. Shirk creates fear. The state of sectarian Islam is part of this. وَكَيْفَ خَافُوا مَا أَشْرَكْتُمْ وَلَا تَخَافُونَ أَنَّكُمْ أَشْرَكْتُمْ بِاللَّهِ مَا لَمْ يُنَزِّلْ بِهِ عَلَيْكُمْ سُلْطَانًا فَأَيُّ الْفَرِيقَيْنِ أَحَقُّ بِالْأَمْنِ إِن كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. How should I fear the beings you associate with Allah when you fear not giving partners to Allah without any authority provided to you? And this is another important, that all these people who do not come to the Quran and associate other things with Allah are essentially the ones who are the cause for creating this fear and huzn in the world. Which of us two parties has more right to peace? Tell me if you know. Next verse is, when the system starts to take shape and some normalcy returns, then وَلَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ بَعْدَ إِصْلَاحِهَا وَادْعُوهُ خَوْفًا وَطَمَعًا إِنَّ رَحْمَةَ اللَّهِ قَرِيبٌ مِنَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Do not create fasad on the earth after it has been set in order, but call on him with fear and expectation, for the rahmat of Allah is near those who are muhsineen. And khaufan wa taman over here means that khauf means that you should always be have some kind of apprehension of not going against the laws of Allah. And expectation over here will mean that since we are following the right path, so the results will appear at some point in time, but to persevere and be patient. Can we get Allah's help? And that is another important question for us as students of the Quran. The efforts towards establishing the system of deen always commence from a very weak position, just like a seed, and then start to gain strength if the recipe is adhered to by the mu'mineen. And Quran says, وَاذْكُرُوا إِذَا أَنْتُمْ قَلِيلٌ مُسْتَضْعَفُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ تَخَافُونَ أَنْ يَتَخَطَّفَكُمُ النَّاسُ فَآوَكُمْ وَأَيَّدَكُمْ بِنَصْرِهِ وَرَزَقَكُمْ مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. Remember when you are a small band weak in the land. And see how beautifully Quran points to the initial stages of those people who are treading on this path, and fearful that men might kidnap you. But he provided a safe asylum for you, strengthened you with his aid, and gave you good tidings of sustenance, that is rizq, so that you might bring out your best. And Quran is trying to motivate mu'mineen that you are not left alone. Allah's laws are there to help you to get through these initial stages where you are weak. Becoming a companion of Allah leads to acquiring that psyche which becomes free from fear and huzn. And Quran says, Allah inna awliyallahi la khawfun alayhim wa lahum yahzanun. Behold, verily on the companions of Allah there is no fear, nor shall they grieve. And this stage does arrive, nor shall they grieve. And this stage does arise after some time, once one understands how the Quran helps through its laws to establish the system of deen. Man-made systems create fear, and the acceptance of Iman leads to becoming free from all kinds of fears and the strengthening of human resolve to stand up for the cause of Allah. And over here I've quoted a verse from with regard to the messenger Musa. فَمَا آمَنَا لِمُوسَى إِلَّا ذُرِّيَّةٌ مِّن قَوْمِهِ عَلَىٰ خَوْفٍ مِّن فِرْعَوْنَ وَمَلَئِهِمْ أَن يَفْتِنَاهُمْ وَإِنَّ فِرْعَوْنَ لَعَالٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَإِنَّهُ لَمِنَ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. But none had Iman in Musa except some youths of his nation. See how Quran explains this event from the past, that it is not that Allah is not aware of these things. He is aware of it because all these things have taken place with the former messengers as well. Because of the fear of Pharaoh and his chiefs, lest they should persecute them. And certainly Pharaoh was mighty in the land and one who transgressed all bounds. So Quran is asking us that if your path is right and you know that your path is right, then keep treading on it and see how the laws of Allah and his help will come to your aid, because you are standing up for the cause of Allah. Further elaboration on getting help of Allah. When Musa and Harun, that is his brother, were asked to go to Pharaoh, and it was a very difficult part, a big challenge to go to Pharaoh, because if you remember, Messenger Musa had killed one of his men. Qala Rabbana innana nakhafu an yafratu alayna aw an yatgha. That is Musa and Harun said, our Rabb, we fear lest he hasten with insolence against us, or lest he transgresses all bounds. So there was fear over there, and how to overcome that fear, the next verse explains it. They were assured, Qala la takhafa. Now this is what Allah is saying, that do not fear. Innani ma'akuma asma'u wa ara. He, that is Allah, said, fear not, for I am with you, I hear and see. This verse provides tremendous strength on this path, that once we become companions of Allah and He brings us out of the darknesses into light, then these things start becoming very clear that He is not going to leave us alone. He is listening as well as He sees. And we can pay attention to it. We have gone over it previously as well, that how does it work? We need to remember that Deen has to be established through the hands of human beings who become Mu'mineen, and the Quran sheds light on this. Illa tansuruhu faqad nasarahullahu iz akhrajahul lazina kafaru saniyas nane iz huma fil ghari iz yakulu lisahibihi la tahzan inna allaha ma'ana fanzalallahu sakinatahu alayhi wa ayyadahu bijnudil lam tarawha wa ja'ala kalimatul lazina kafarul sufla wa kalimatullahi hiyal ulya wallahu azizun hakim. This is in relation to the Messenger of Allah and his companion when they escaped from Mecca and went to Medina, where some kind of basic structure of Deen was shaping up, and they had to hide themselves to protect themselves. And this is part of physical side of human existence. But over here, beautifully, Quran has summed it up, that what was going on in the invisible part of providing help to these to Messenger and his companions in establishing the system of Deen. If you help not, that is your leader Rasulullah, it does not matter. And over here, Quran makes it very clear that once some people become companions of Allah, then they deserve all kind of protection. For Allah did indeed help him when the kuffar drove him out. He had no more than one companion. The two were in the cave, and he said to his companion, have no fear, la tahzan. See, it's the same word Huzn is used over here. For Allah is with us. And we can imagine that what kind of a Huzn is created when one is fearing for his own life. Then Allah sent down His peace upon him and helped him with forces which you saw not. So all these forces, the psychological forces, we have to recognize within our own self, and we have to in fact create those within all those potentials which are given to us, and humble to the depths the word of the kuffar. But the word of Allah is exalted to the heights, for Allah is Aziz and Hakim. And over here, Quran has beautifully summed it up by saying it is Aziz and Hakim. This work has to be carried out by human beings, and these human beings have to be provided protection. So the Quran over here is telling all those Mu'mineen that be firm, stand up for the cause. The success is written for you and it will come in your direction. And it did. Fear is caused by following the wrong path of life. And that is another very important point for us. While living within the man-made system, once we have decided to be on this path, we should remember some of these points. Injustice is linked to fear. Afi qulubihim maradun amirtabu am yakhafuna an yahifallahu alayhim wa rasuluhu bal ulaika humuz zalimun. Is it that there is a disease in their hearts, or do they doubt or fear that Allah and His Messenger will deal unjustly with them? And this is a kind of fear which some human beings might feel who come to the Quran, that they might lose some benefits of life if they follow this path. Nay, it is they themselves who do zulm. That is, they themselves are doing injustice, and as a result of that injustice, that fear becomes created within their own hearts. The messengers were helped when the situation demanded. وَلَمَّا أَنْ جَاءَتْ رُسُلُنَا لُوطًا سِيَّا بِهِمْ وَزَاقَ بِهِمْ زَرْعًا وَقَالُوا لَا تَخَفْ وَلَا تَحْزَنْ إِنَّا مُنَجُّكَ وَأَهْلَكَ إِلَّا أَمْرَاتَكَ كَانَتْ مِنَ الْغَابِرِينَ. And when our messengers came to Lut, he was grieved on their account and felt himself powerless to protect them. We remember this story we have covered previously, where the messenger Lut received some of the messengers of Allah who came over to guide him what to do next. But they said, fear you not, nor grieve. We are to save you and your followers, that is Ahl. And see the beauty over here, the Quran has defined Ahl as well. That since through the biological relationships, once people who follow the path of Allah, they become a new family. They acquire a new self, and as a result, they go higher than the basic biological relationships. And in that biological relationship, even the wife of the messenger Lut left behind. In fact, she made a choice to stay behind. Except your wife, she is of those who lag behind. The procedure for eliminating fear and death in the case of Jews, for example, Quran says, "Qul ya ayyuhallazina hadu in za'amtum annakum awliya'u lillahi min dunin nasi fatamannawul mauta in kuntum sadiqeen." Say, O you who stand on Judaism, if you think that you are friends of Allah to the exclusion of other men, then express your desire for death if you are truthful. This is a beautiful verse stating facts regarding eliminating the fear of death. What Quran is saying over here is that if you follow the path of Allah and stick to its values, you will see that gradually you will get rid of this underlying fear of death. And particularly once you come together and your hearts are united, then you know that you have gone over to the next stage of your self-development. Some additional aspects related to fear and grief. The word khashiyat is also used in the Quran, also appears in the meaning of fear, that is Khauf. It is more severe than fear because its fundamental meaning is the wilting of a plant to becoming absolutely dry. The meaning of khashiyat Allah is the intense fear of the destructive outcomes of disobeying the laws of Allah. That is becoming very, very conscious of not making mistakes and all the time remaining fully aware of it, that what kind of thoughts are arising in my head, and I should never ever go against the laws of Allah. We need to keep in mind that to remain protected and secured from fear and grief is the negative aspect of human existence. Its positive aspect is to achieve something and thus progress ahead. Because fear and huzn keeps us back. Whereas once we get rid of it, once we understand its psyche and we treat it, then we become essentially free from fear and grief, and then we are able to create more positive thoughts and then go on to create better world and follow the Quran. And then by coming together, we follow this path very firmly, and we have a firm conviction that success is awaiting us at some point in the future. For this, the term Salam has appeared in the Quran, which means to become completed and to reach completion. Protecting from fear and grief is a basic requirement of life, and combined with the development of the human self, this leads to fulfilling the aim of life. This is why with the divine attribute of Al-Mu'min, there is also another attribute of As-Salam, i.e. through the nourishment and growth of everything, taking it to its completion. From this aspect, a Mu'min is also a Muslim. He himself is an Amd and giving a guarantee of to others, developing his own self and becoming a helper in the development of the selves of others. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of Deen.